Finish what he said, if I might. Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credit people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden.
Tonight, the fallout from that debate showdown as President Biden looks to turn the page after his unsteady performance. Joe Biden and Donald Trump back in the trail after that contentious debate. The president looking for a reset after his struggles on stage raise alarm among Democrats. Some now calling for him to be replaced on the ticket. Mr. Biden in North Carolina in front of a raucous crowd admitting he doesn't debate as well as he used to, but still vowing to win. Former President Trump claiming victory during a rally in Virginia, but under fire for his repeated falsehoods on the debate stage. Our political team breaking it all down tonight. Also this evening, the major rulings from the Supreme Court, including one involving charges against January 6th defendants, another overturning a 40-year-old precedent long targeted by conservatives, and what the court said about a law that could result in homeless people being arrested. Severe storm striking Florida, powerful winds flipping over a vehicle, and the new tropical depression we're tracking. New details in the indictment over the botched police response to the Uvalde school shooting. And let the battle begin. Simone Biles and more top U.S. gymnasts competing this weekend to punch their tickets to Paris.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. President Biden appearing to dismiss talk among some Democrats of replacing him on the ticket after what was too many a weekend concerning debate performance against former President Trump last night. The president today before a fired-up crowd of supporters in North Carolina, declaring when you get knocked down, you get back up, suggesting he's staying in the race, telling the crowd, I know how to do this job. Mr. Biden today appearing far more energized than last night when he struggled to complete thoughts at times, all while Mr. Trump delivered a rapid-fire barrage of talking points on immigration and the economy, a number of them false or misleading. President Biden calling out Mr. Trump over his recent criminal conviction and blasting his morals. Much of the debate, however, overshadowed by Joe Biden's on-stage performance. Gabe Gutierrez has late details.
Facing panic within the Democratic Party. Today at a raucous rally in North Carolina, a defiant President Biden declared he's staying in the race.
When you get knocked down, you get back up.
While acknowledging his debate performance that many Democrats panned as a disaster.
I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job.
Today's event, a stark contrast from the night before. Supporters here sticking by him.
I would love to have seen that person at the debate last night.
Is President Biden the best person to lead the Democratic Party right now?
Who else is there?
Meanwhile, at his rally in Virginia, former President Trump taking a victory lap.
The question every voter should be asking themselves today is not whether Joe Biden can survive a 90-minute debate performance, but whether America can survive 4 more years of crooked Joe Biden in the White House.
All of it coming after last night's debate, where the 81-year-old president hoped to put to rest questions about his mental acuity. Instead, he fueled even more. With a raspy voice the campaign blamed on a cold, he repeatedly lost his train of thought.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Even muddling this answer on one of his key issues, abortion rights.
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state.
Former President Trump took advantage.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
But President Biden did deliver some sharp attacks against Mr. Trump, branding him a convicted felon and getting personal.
How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? What are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Your minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star.
Former President Trump, appearing more measured to start, became more aggressive with his attacks as the debate wore on.
Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border, that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world?
But he also repeated many false claims, including that most Americans supported overturning Roe v. Wade when polls show otherwise.
You had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception.
And the lie that there was widespread fraud in the 2020 election.
The fraud and everything else was ridiculous.
He also refused to give a clear answer on whether he'd accept the results this November.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely.
After the debate, Republicans went on the attack, saying the night validated their concerns about the president's fitness for office.
We have been discussing here for a long, long time that President Biden is not up to the job. Everyone sees that clearly.
The Biden campaign doing damage control. A source familiar with the discussions tells NBC News staffers considered pulling Vice President Kamala Harris from scheduled post-debate interviews, but she said she wanted to do them to defend the president.
Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish.
Gabe, we've learned there's late tonight a new notable call for President Biden to step aside.
Yes, Lester, the New York Times editorial board just published a scathing piece headlined, "To serve his country, President Biden should leave the race," writing he is not the man he was 4 years ago. Lester.
Gabe Gutierrez tonight. Thank you. There's also growing alarm tonight among Democrats over the president's debate performance, some privately calling for him to drop out, but others are rallying to President Biden's defense, including former President Obama. Here's Peter Alexander.
Tonight, as President Biden defends his place atop the ticket, some Democrats are considering an extraordinary scenario, whether someone else should be their nominee. Overnight, private worries turn into public alarm.
He had one thing he had to accomplish, and that was reassure America that he was up to the job at his age. and he failed at that tonight.
There are going to be discussions about whether he should continue.
The doubts deepening. One veteran Democratic strategist telling NBC News there is no coming back from this disaster. But tonight, this forceful show of support from former President Obama, writing bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. But this election is still a choice between someone who has fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself. Adding last night didn't change that. And this from California Governor Gavin Newsom, who some Democrats have floated as an alternative nominee.
You don't turn your back because of one performance. What kind of party does that?
Also defending the president, Democratic Senator John Fetterman, who won despite struggling in his own debate following a stroke, saying, "I refuse to join the Democratic vultures on Biden's shoulder." But more perilous for the president, his performance comes after the White House spent months pushing back against any questions about his mental and physical fitness to serve. The only plausible scenario for Democrats to select a new nominee, according to a DNC Rules Committee member, would be for the president himself to decide to withdraw.
He himself would have to get out of the race, okay? There's no other way to do it. Because those delegates that are already elected, they like Joe Biden, they're loyal to Joe Biden.
If President Biden were to drop out before he's formally nominated in August, it could create a free-for-all among Democrats because there's no mechanism for him or anyone else to anoint a chosen successor. So President Biden made clear again today that he's not going anywhere, and the president's aides tonight say that he'll do the second scheduled debate in September. Lester?
All right, Peter, thank you. As it nears the end of its term, the Supreme Court issued several blockbuster rulings today, including a decision affecting January 6 defendants and one that undercuts the federal government's power. Laura Jarrett has